Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Manny here once again. Welcome back to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. And before I proceed on with the video, like always guys, I appreciate a like in the video. And if it's your first time here and you haven't subscribed as of yet, right down below in your right hand corner of your screen, you're going to have that subscribe button there. Just subscribe down there below, and of course, do not forget to turn on your notifications. This way you will not miss any of my new uploads. With that being said, today is Thursday, May the 3rd, 2018. We have a 2-game NBA playoff slate today on Fanduel. A 50K is going up for grabs tonight, and obviously I am here to help you guys try to get there, as well as I am looking to try to bury that 50K myself. Alright, so we have Cleveland at Toronto, Philadelphia at Boston. Both games, both matchups are pretty good. This is going to be two solid games. I don't expect anybody here to blow the other one out unless one team just totally does not come to play today, or someone majorly, God forbid, gets hurt that is important to their respective team. That's the only way I see a blowout here. I think both games are going to be competitive. I think both games are going to go down to the fourth quarter, somewhere within the last 2 or 3 minutes. If there is a possibility of any team having an extended possible big lead and maybe winning a little easier, would probably be, for me, in my opinion, Philadelphia. But the Cleveland-Toronto game, I mean, I don't know. The Cleveland just showed the other day that they're not going to go, and they're not going to go away. So Toronto is going to have to get that monkey off their back with the Cavaliers, which they have had trouble with LeBron's teams over the years in the playoffs. These guys got to step up. Not that Lowry and DeRozan did not play well the other day. They did, but they let themselves, let that game slip away. And they're definitely going to have a better effort from from the rest of the guys on that ball club. But let's get right into it, man. Cleveland-Toronto at Toronto. Toronto is favored by 6. They have an implied total of 109. The Cavaliers at 103. A couple little statistical notes. Rebounding, Cleveland is averaging 39 rebounds per game during the playoffs. That is dead last out of the teams that are in the playoffs. Toronto is 7th with a 40 rebounds per game. Turnover ratio, both teams are pretty much even at 14 turnovers per game. Field goal percentage, Cleveland is dead last at 44% right now. Toronto is 3rd out of the playoff teams at 47.3%. Three-point shooting percentage, Cleveland is 8th, also last, 32%. They did shoot better the other day thanks to Mr. J.R. Smith. Toronto are 1st at 40.8% right now in three-point range. Points, the average points, Toronto is averaging 109.2 and Cleveland is at 97.8. And that's pretty much it with that. Let's go right into some of the players here, some of the key guys that you definitely want to consider here. We're going to focus strictly on the Cleveland-Toronto game. Okay, I do have my fantasy cruncher with me, so we'll be able to look at some other information. Let's go here. So point guard, we have the matchups here. We got Lowry and Wright and Van Fleet. And pretty much Wright and Van Fleet definitely gets time on the floor. George Hill is the only lone Cavalier here, other than Calderon. I don't think Calderon is going to get much time here at all unless something happens to Hill. I would think Hill, who came in the second half and was very effective against Toronto in game 1, will probably get a little bit more time today. Let's go right over to the cruncher and take a look at these guys for a moment. Kyle Lowry, fantastic. He's been pretty darn good. 35, 41, 42. 40, 38, 39, 38, and 29 being one of his lower scores here during the course of the playoffs. Lowry is averaging 38 among all these games. He's averaging, and I already did all these calculations, he's averaging about 38 fantasy points per game during the course of the playoffs. His price today is at 82, so that means he needs to get about 41 for you to hit value. Obviously, he's been able to get there at 41 and 42 in game 6 and Game 6 and 7 against Washington. And then, of course, he put up a 35, almost a 36 spot against Cleveland the other day in a losing effort. Minutes is fantastic. He's getting the minutes. We know that he's one of the studs on the team. 40, 32, 38, 39, 35, 35, 37 during the course of the playoffs. He's been playing literally 34 plus minutes per game. Usage rate 17%, almost 18% in the last game. Not extremely high for 40 minutes. He did take sufficient shots, 6 of 12, 3 of 6 from three-point range, and he had 10 nice assists the other day, which was really nice to see. Definitely need to see him, like I had mentioned before in the first video. These guys have a tendency, Lowry and DeRozan, to not, do a little bit extra with their teams. He definitely did better with passing the ball in game one, but he's still lacking a little bit with the rebounding. Definitely will need him to see him get a little bit more rebounds here. Will definitely help the ball club. Maybe the difference in them winning. But 18 points total for the game is really respectable for Kyle Lowry. He's definitely a good play. He will be about value. I don't see him having a dud game. I don't see him like scoring 25 or 30 fantasy points at that price. I think he'll be near value. I think in this particular game, he obviously is in the best situation, as far as point guards are concerned. Yeah, definitely. I definitely like Lowry here. He's also in a position, another thing to remember, and I think I've mentioned this before in game one when I gave you guys some statistical points here, is that Cleveland has had trouble with point guards, and I have here point guards allowed, big games and massive games allowed to point guards by Cleveland this year are 18. So definitely he's in a good spot to actually have a game where he can explode. And we know he has upside. We know that Kyle Lowry can put up a 50 spot. He's not going to do it often, but he has those moments where he's shooting and he's kind of lights out. If he can shoot at a 50% clip or better from the three-point line and from the from the floor, and get at least more shots off. He did that here in game one. He was 50% from two, and he was 50% from three-point range, and he hit all his free throws. He just needs to definitely get on the line a little bit more, because he is a good free throw shooter. Definitely get a couple more touches and get some more balls out, and take some more shots. If he does that, then he'll be definitely an awesome play. But he's definitely in play tonight. Someone you definitely should consider. My favorite play here. Well, I won't go into my favorite play because I want to stay focused on the teams. We're going to go over to George Hill, who had he played 28 minutes in game one, and he finished with 11 fantasy points. Obviously, he had that great game in game 7 against Indiana. He played 19 minutes. He put 24 fantasy points. His fantasy, his total fantasy points have been really like nil. He's really low. Probably about 14, almost more like 15 fantasy points per game. Really low, but he's in a good position here again as a good spot, because Toronto has had big games allowed to point guards throughout the season. They actually have allowed 12 big games throughout the season. Not a whole lot, but it is quite a bit, and there's that potential that if he gets enough time on the court and gets enough touches, maybe something can happen. So we'll see what happens with George Hill, but at 3,800, I think he's a fair play for that price, and especially if he starts and he's able to get 28 plus minutes, there's a very good chance that he'll definitely smash that that price range. They have him here projected on Fantasy Cruncher to put up 18, so we'll see what happens there. But other than that, out of the two, I definitely like Lowry the best. I'd rather pay up for Lowry at 8,200 and try to get at least those 39, 40 fantasy points, and he has that upside to maybe put up 45, 50. So I like Lowry there in this matchup against Cleveland. Other than that, Dillon Wright and Fred VanVleet are definitely a great plays. Wright is at 4,800. He only put up a 9, pretty much a 10 spot against Cleveland in game one. Played only 16 minutes. Was very ineffective, but that's also because VanVleet got some time. And VanVleet, during the course of the year, he pretty much was the guy who was coming off the bench primarily to relieve Lowry. And now that he was back, as you can see, he put 15 minutes. His minutes are going to be up. This is nice to see. He put up 15, almost 16 fantasy points, VanVleet, and usage rate was fantastic at almost 24%. In 15 minutes, he put 15 fantasy points. That's a point a minute. Like I mentioned yesterday, you definitely want to see stuff like that when you're playing for fantasy points. I look at this as like I need to find guys that are going to give me the best value for the price and has upside or the potential to give me the most fantasy points for GPP play. So in this case, he is definitely in a good spot for that. At 3,800, he's fairly cheap. They're projecting him to put 13. We do have him here on Fantasy Cruncher with questionable. Let's see, he's not on here on the Fanduel, so that means he is good to go. So we're gonna go with what Fanduel has. So Van Fleet is in play. So I would say the best play here in this matchup is definitely Kyle Lowry, but I could see myself throwing in a little Van Fleet or maybe even a little George Hill in some of my lineups. All right, guys. So definitely those are the guys you should be targeting. Shooting guard, DeMar DeRozan is in play. J.R. Smith had a heck of a game the other day, but the problem with J.R., as we all know, he is not consistent. You know, I mean, he had that awesome game the other day. He may come back and have a complete dud today, and maybe today is the day that Carver has the big game, and he has the dull game, and he gets less minutes. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go over to the cruncher. We go to shooting guard. Pretty much these are the guys that I have that I'm keeping my eye on. Obviously, Smith and Carver are there. DeMar DeRozan is in play for me. I actually had him and Kyle Lowry in game one in pretty much half of my lineups, and they did fairly well. As you can see, he put up 47, nearly 48 fantasy points in 40 minutes. So that's more than 1 point a minute. His usage rate was about 24% if you want to round that out. He took 20 shots. That's what you love to see. He did 50% from there. He definitely struggled from the three-point strike. He got on the line. Not enough on the line. I'd like to see him get on the line a little bit more. He did have 7 rebounds and 5 assists, so a little bit better than the last previous games, as you can see here. That's what I want to see. This is what I was talking about, where he has a tendency of not doing this. If he is able to do this, I guess he heard me, and he went out there and he decided to rebound a little bit more and defend and get some defensive rebounds. This is what you got to do. You know, at this time of year, everybody, including guards, should be out there trying to get every possible ball possession as possible for their team. Shoot the ball, follow it up, the rebound may come back to you. Maybe you might be able to get a tip in. Maybe you might be able to get a putback. You know, maybe you might be able to get the ball and be able to hit one of your open players on the wing. You know, so I mean, these are the things you got to do. You got to go the extra mile. So he did very well here. I'm very pleased with the numbers he put. He almost put up a 50 spot. Definitely a good play. DeMar DeRozan, 8,700. His price went up by $200. I think he's capable of definitely reaching. He needs here what 40. Needs about 46. No, like 43, 44. I mean, he put up 47. He can do it. I mean, we know that he can, and he has great upside. You know, he has great upside. He is capable of putting 50 plus in any given day when things are going right for him. So I definitely like DeMar DeRozan there. Mr. Smart. Nope, we're getting out of ourselves. Yeah, we're going to stick with the Cavaliers. Then we go to Cavaliers. They basically have Carver and Smith. And Carver and Smith, I mean, you know, they're a tandem. You know, it's like they have to work together. I mean, Kyle Carver played 38 minutes in game one. He got a lot of shots. He was not that effective. If he would have been effective, he would have lit up the scoreboard even more than J.R. Smith did, because you can see he took 17 shots from the floor and 12 from three-point range, and he shot pretty much at about 35% or so. You know, 37, anywhere between 35 to 40%. 7 of 17 and 5 of 12 from three-point range. He took 12 three-pointers. Now imagine what those numbers would have looked, and that's what I like to see. He put up 19 points. He had plenty of shots, massive minutes. It could have been better if he would have put a lot more than 22 up. So he is definitely a good play going into today's game. If he's going to get that amount of looks again, Kyle Carver is not going to be at 35-40% shooting on average. When he is hot, he will shoot that at a 50% clip or better, and that's going to obviously will show here as far as fantasy points. So he's definitely a very good GPP play simply because of that. J.R. Smith, definitely in a good spot as well. He played 36 minutes. It looks like these guys were on the floor a whole lot together. 6 of 11 and 5 of 6 from 3. I mentioned that earlier. I think he hit 4 or 5 threes. He definitely hit 5 out of 6. 20 points. He had 2 steals. J.R. Smith was fantastic in game 1. The only problem is, as you can see here, it's terrible the rest of the way. You know, he is not consistent enough. J.R. Smith has been averaging 18 fantasy points throughout these playoffs, including the series against Indiana. Kyle Korver has been averaging 16, but he had a massive game in the other one. And this is the things that you got to, when I look at this stuff, to see, I look at who on Cleveland as well as who on Toronto would I want to favor more as far as fantasy point production or guys that can get the job done, or at least get me to the point where I can get the most fantasy points out of. And when you look at both teams, you're gonna obviously, to me, my opinion, I see that more with with Raptor players. So we look at we set the roles. Let's go to small forward, guys. Small forward, we know in this game you're definitely gonna concentrate on Mr. James. LeBron has been fantastic throughout the whole playoffs, but he's LeBron James. He's the baddest man on the planet. He's the greatest. He's the greatest basketball player pretty much on the floor the course of this year. At his age, he's been fabulous. He's definitely, to me, MVP caliber for the league this year. For the way he has carried his team, because he has really. Let's put it this way: if LeBron continues to put up, if Mr. James continues to put up numbers like this, 66, 74, and those role players can at least shoot at 40% clip, they're going to be able to get pretty far just with that alone, because LeBron is the key guy. When you look at Cleveland, you don't look at them as like they got massive stars. Their massive star is LeBron James. He is pretty much the team. But those role players got to do their part. If those guys can contribute the way Carver did, which I just showed you now with Carver and Smith. They both had great games. But the problem is with those guys is that they're not consistent. They had that great game the other day. Today, they can just totally belly flop on you. And then you're like pissed off. And it's happened to me as well, where I've taken one of these two guys and they have not come off well the next time they play. So they are a risky play, but they are good GPP plays. LeBron James is a good core player for fantasy basketball. He has obviously the ceiling, the floor, and he is consistent. He has 2 reds here, and these are still massive numbers. 43 here and 54 against Indiana in game 3. But overall, 70, 69, 74, 66. He's averaging 60. I would say 64 plus over those last several games. I have him here over the whole playoffs. He's averaging 63 points per game. 63. If you tally all this up in those 8-9 games, he's at 62, 63 fantasy points per game. And that's what you want to see, if you're going to go with somebody. So at 13.5, I'm okay with LeBron paying 13.5 for him. He's giving me those numbers. He's getting me at least close to that, or he's going to actually smash that. And he's the one player that you can chalk up and say, hey, you know what? I'll take a chance on him for 13.5. And as you can see, at Fantasy Cruncher has him with 52 fantasy points today, when we know he's capable of putting up 60 to 70. And he has a massive lead over the second guy in this list, in Jason Tatum, which we'll discuss later for Boston. So then we look at Toronto. Toronto really doesn't have it. They got OG and CJ Miles. Those are the only 2 guys that will rotate and play small forward for these guys. So the matchup is all there for James. What I do like is that LeBron, even though he's LeBron, he definitely plays more the point as opposed to small forward. But he definitely matches up with the bigger guys when he's defending. So he'll get OG. OG will defend him. OG had his little rough go with LeBron the other day, and I had him in my lineups, and he was my one killer. If you guys remember when I show you my lineup of that 20-point difference between myself at 242nd place in that tournament the other night, and the first place individuals who were tied for first had 393. The difference was 20 points for me. My biggest blow was having OG in that lineup, who only, I think, put up 12 or whatever it was, 13 fantasy points. If I would have gotten to get to at least 20 something, and I would have had one other guy do at least 10 or 20, I would have been able to cash 30K that night. I was 20 points from it, and OG was the only one on my lineup that really had a rough go. Everybody else was at, I would say, 30 fantasy points and up. Okay, so OG definitely, and the thing is that he's also still primed in a position to do well tonight, because as I mentioned before in game 1, as well as I mentioned already here today, I'm going to mention it now once again, is Cleveland has had their issues with small forwards, power forwards throughout the year. Some areas, sometimes they struggle a little bit at center, and they'll struggle also in the point guard spot. So, this is a good spot for OG. Once again, 3,500. He's right there. He's at the bottom of the as far as the barrel, as far as price is concerned. They're projecting him at 17, and we know that he could put up 25 to 30. He's capable of it. So we have here 12, 8, 10, 12, 19. He's got some green here in the Washington series, so we know he can get up to about 20. he needs to get in that range for you to at least get value out of him. He didn't do that for me the other night, but I think he's a fair play. If you're looking for a value play, I think he's someone you could take a risk on in a GPP because he has 25%. I mean 25. He has 25 to 30 fantasy point upside, and that would be a great return if he can do that for you for one night. It may even get you a GPP win. You may walk away with 50 grand or 20 grand or 10 grand. So definitely someone you can consider. CJ Miles, another good spot as well. 15, 9, 21. It's not showing too much here in the statistical things, but you know, he does get decent amount of minutes, 21, 19, 23, 21, so he's getting about 20 to 23. I definitely prefer OG over him. So in this particular matchup, James is definitely the best bet in this matchup here, small forward for the Cleveland-Toronto game. But if you wanted to get value, I think OG is in a good spot. You know, simply because they have their issues with small forwards. They didn't have it in game 1, but they may have it in game 2. Power forward position, Kevin Love, Ibaka, Jeff Green. I'm not too much into any of the other guys. Sakiam, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. I just don't, you know, I look at these guys here. Love has not been loved as of yet. He's showing signs, but he's just not getting cooking. Let's go over here to the Fantasy Cruncher, take a look at that. If we look here, Kevin Love, they're projecting to put about 26 up today. He's at 65. You need about 33 from him, and he hasn't hit that value in a while. So for me, he is not a good play for me today. And that's just the way I feel about it. And I know we shouldn't just judge it by just how he's done here. We know he has upside, but when he's going to show it? There's been times I've said in my videos, I think this is the day he's going to break out. Love is not going to be like this forever. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm not willing to risk it again tonight, especially when you're asking that the price is $6,500 and he hasn't even matched that value at all in the last 6 or 7 games. I mean, I have here, he is averaging 24 fantasy points during the course of this playoffs when you tally all this up. You know, look at the shooting, 3 of 13, 1 of 4. He's getting 34 minutes and he still cannot be effective on the floor. Now, he's still doing the dirty stuff. He got a bunch of rebounds in game 1. He's going to need to do the same thing again today, because when you're not shooting well, that's the least you can be doing. It's still going out there and battling and getting those extra possessions, getting the rebounds. All right, keeping teams to 1 shot, and that's what he's done here with 11 defensive rebounds. All right, personal fouls didn't help him either. I mean, he had to get off the court several times. You can see in both Game 7 against Indy and Game 1 against Toronto, 5 personal fouls. He only put up 7 points, so his shooting was horrific. What saved him and gave him at least 23 fantasy points is because he rebounded. He put only 2 assists. He's not a passer. He's a rebounder and he's a shooter. Kevin Love needs to shoot better. If you want to play him, you can. I don't advise, you know, I don't think he's going to be highly owned, so that's going to be an advantage for you guys if you want to play him. You can take a risk on him. He has upside. GPP, perfect play. I just don't know. I think I can get someone at small forward somewhere else, maybe in the Boston game as opposed to this one. All right. So Kevin Love is someone I'm not considering, but Serge Ibaka, different story. He hasn't shown to do well at all either. Me personally, to be honest with you, I am more in favor of looking at the power forwards in the other game than in this game. Sometimes you have to look at the games and say, where are you going to get the best value from as far as price and as far as who's going to get minutes and who's going to score offensively. And when you look at this series here, you're looking at, like I just showed you, Kevin Love and now Ibaka. I mean, these are not convincing numbers for me. You know, to say to myself, I'm going to make my core lineup, and these guys are going to be, one of these guys is going to be my lineup, or both. When I have guys like Sarge, Simmons, and and Elisova that I can choose from in the other game, or even a Marcus Morris. So it's not much of a selection here with Kevin Love and Ibaka. So me personally, even though I just shared with you Ibaka, in this particular matchup, I don't like either one of these guys, Kevin Love or Ibaka. I'm going to be definitely leaning towards having my power forwards come out of this game over here. All right, so that's something that sometimes you just got to look at. Now I'm not going to say I'm not going to be one of these guys to tell you, yeah, you definitely Love is in he's in a good spot. Ibaka's in a good spot. Both of these teams definitely do struggle with power forward position. More so the Cavaliers, so you will probably say Ibaka has the advantage here, but he hasn't shown it. He didn't show it in game one. But I would not be surprised if he has a good game today, because remember, Kevin Love, he's under the power forward position here, but he's playing center. He's going to start as center again tonight, I would assume. All right, and then they'll work in Mr. Thompson. All right, so let's go over to the center position. We have Valanciunas, Thompson, and basically that is it in this particular game. And I'm all over Valanciunas. I think he is the best center in this game, and he may be the best opportunity tonight, other than Embiid. Okay, so Valanciunas, good spot. Let's go over to the cruncher center. We'll look at him a little bit. Valanciunas has been fantastic, even though it says here Cleveland is #1 against centers. They did not show that in game one, obviously. 49, almost 50 fantasy points for Valanciunas. Again, like I've always said about Valanciunas, he is not a bad basketball player. Let this man play some minutes on the court. He had a rough go there. He missed a couple easy layups, couple easy putbacks late in the game. I know he was frustrated. He was upset at himself, and he should be. They should have pulled out this game. He definitely had made some boo-boos there at the end. 34 minutes. Usage rate was through the roof, 31%, 7 of 19 from the floor. Obviously, 21 massive rebounds. That's massive, okay? And that's like I said before, he doesn't foul people, man. This guy could stay on the floor as long as he's healthy. He's been resting all year long. Let this guy play up to 35 to 40 minutes in one or two of these games if you need him to, because he's going to dominate. He's the dominant center in this matchup against Cleveland. Love is not going to be able to match up with him physically, all right? And neither is anybody else that comes to the floor. Tristan Thompson, a little more athletic, a little bit more longer, a little bit, better wingspan, but not. I just still see that Valanciunas is the best play here. So if you're going to go with a center in this particular game, I would say you definitely go with Valanciunas. Valanciunas is averaging 35 fantasy points during the course of the playoffs. And as you can see here, he has been in the green with 36 plus over the last 3 games, including the 2 last games, 6 and 7 against Washington. So, again, Valanciunas, a great play. You're only asking 7,000 Valanciunas. He's got to give you 35. I think he's going to smash value. He's going to have 36 or better. The longest he plays, 30 minutes or more. Let this guy play. Let him rebound. Let him get dirty. Let him play ball. And you'll see that he'll definitely get you the fantasy points. So I definitely love Valanciunas here in this Cleveland-Toronto matchup. Tristan Thompson has been fantastic. He's only 4,500, so if you want a value play out of all the centers on the whole entire slate, this may be the best play. I'm not going to go with him there. We'll go over here to Fantasy Cruncher. Tristan Thompson, only 4,500 for tonight's game, so you need what, 22, 23 from him? He put up 31 and 28 in the last 2 games, and I'm only going by those 2 games. That 2 games average is 31. It's actually that 2-game average is actually 30. So 30 points in 2 games average, 26 and 35 minutes. Again, let Tristan play. He's hungry. He's been obviously upset that he's been sitting all this time during the course of the playoffs. Didn't really play at all in the Indiana series, other than the last game. And he decided, hey, it's time to take matters in my own hands. I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to get some touches. I'm going to put the ball in the basket, and that's exactly what he's been doing. So Tristan Thompson at 4,500 is an excellent low-value play tonight. If you want to squeeze in and get a couple more studs, get a little Lowry, get a little Rozier, then maybe a Tristan Thompson may be someone for you. Definitely someone to consider. All right. Let's move on. We're going to go now to the Toronto. Before I go on, let me just tell you, this particular game, good matchups, all right? This game here alone, another tip, I've been saying it over and over again, you can go, when you have a 2-game slate like this, and this is the playoffs, you're going to get guys that are going to play a massive amount of minutes, especially if the games are close. Everybody wants to win. This is it. This is about do or die every single night. You can go with a core lineup in 1 game. So if you wanted to go in and say to yourself, you're going to play, excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. If you want to go with 6 or 7 players out of this particular game, you can do that. And then get your other 2 remaining players from the Boston-Philadelphia game. So you can stack up, you can do a game, what I call game stacking. You can game stack this game and lock in 6, maybe the most 7 solid players, solid plays, and then get your other remaining plays out of the Philadelphia-Boston. All right, and the same will go for Philadelphia-Boston. You can go 6 or 7 players there and make your core lineup out of one game, and then put your remaining 2 players out of the Cleveland-Toronto. So vice versa, whatever way you want to go. I would advise you do one lineup with 6 or 7 players from the Cleveland-Toronto game, get 2 quality players from the Philadelphia-Boston game, and make your lineup there, and then make another lineup where you have 6 or 7 quality players from the Philadelphia-Boston game, and then your remaining 2 positions, 2 or 3 spots, come out of the Cleveland-Toronto game. And if you've done this long enough, you know that those lineups like that sometimes come through. Maybe enough to win the GPP, maybe enough to at least be in a tie for first or second, and make some decent money. All right, so something to consider. Other than that, in the Cleveland-Toronto game, best team stackings. James and Love is probably the best team stack you can do with Cleveland. Because again, like I mentioned before, Cleveland, for me, I just don't see enough offensive firepower among each position. If you think at point guard, they only got George Hill, and when they're not using George Hill, they got Jose Calderon. Neither one of these guys are going to go up there and light it up for a 39-40 spot like a Kyle Lowry or like a Terry Rozier. You know, so this is what you got to understand. So you got to look at it, and logically you'll say to yourself, hey, you know what? There's not a lot of firepower in Cleveland. All right. So if you're going to go with anybody in Cleveland, for sure your main star should be James. And then if you're going to follow up with anybody else in Cleveland, it will probably be Love. Between the two, 62 and 24 average, you can get 86 fantasy points from these guys. All right, so you can look at it like that. I don't see any triple. I don't see no triple stacking here. I don't see like a triple play here where you can get I mean, if you wanted to, maybe you can do a Tristan Thompson and throw in there with him James with Love. Or you may even go with one of the shooters, Carver or J.R. Smith. But I'm not in favor of those. I think the best play here, if you're going to go with a stack from Cleveland, it'll probably be James, and hope that Love has an awesome game. James you're going to get, he's averaging 62 during the course of the playoffs. Love is averaging 24, so you'll get maybe give or take 86 fantasy points, hopefully, or better. And then that better usually is hopefully you're going to get more from Love, because you know that James is capable of getting more than 62 any given night, especially now in the playoffs. All right, so that's something to remember there, guys. Okay. In the Toronto side, a little bit different. You know you can stack Lowry with DeRozan. Those guys are averaging. Lowry's averaging 38 during the course of these playoffs. DeRozan is averaging 39, so you can get 77 fantasy points or better from these two guys, because you know they got upside. You know that Lowry as well as DeRozan could put up a 50 spot to as much as a 55 spot. So imagine both of those guys hitting 50. Now you're getting 100 fantasy points from these guys, you know, and maybe at a price of 8,400 or so each. So I mean, it's very fair. You'll be paying for about 40 fantasy points and getting 50. So that they have that upside that can happen. So if I'm going to stack anybody in the Toronto side, I'm definitely thinking Lowry, DeRozan. Now, if you want to do a triple, you can also do a double stack with DeRozan and Valanciunas. Now that Valanciunas is getting 30 plus minutes. I like Valanciunas with DeRozan. All right, DeRozan and Valanciunas together. Valanciunas is averaging 35, and he's looked fantastic, at least in game 1. So if he could keep on at that clip and put up close to 50, you got now a tremendous upside there. All right, so look at it like that as well. So you got Valanciunas with DeRozan will be 39 from DeRozan and 35 from Valanciunas, because that's what they've been averaging. And if you throw in a Lowry and do a triple play or a triple stack there among players, then I would go Lowry, DeRozan, Valanciunas, and now you got 38, 39, and 35. You got about 112, 113 fantasy points coming out of that Toronto stack. So that's what I would advise there. So those are the stacks that I'm looking at for this game. Now let's go to Philly, Boston. We got Philly and Boston. Philly is favorite at Boston once again. They're right now projected 105.5, and Boston at 101, pretty much similar to game 1. 4.5 game favorites in Boston. Looking at some of the statistical things that have been going on during the course of the playoffs, Philadelphia is top rebounding team in the playoffs. They're averaging 49 rebounds per game. Boston is at 43 rebounds per game. Turnover ratio, Boston is at 13 turnovers per game. Philadelphia a little higher at 16, so the advantage there for Boston. Field goal percentage, Philadelphia is at 45.5%. Boston is at 44.2%, so pretty close there. Three-point shooting percentage, Philadelphia at 36%, Boston at 35%, kind of even there, only a 1% difference. And then points, that's where the difference is at. Philadelphia is averaging 113, and Boston is averaging 103. So that's a 10-point difference there. And man, let's just get right into the players here. At point guard, this is going to be a lot more interesting. Terry Rozier, obviously here is the best point guard in this slate, and not in the slate, but I think he is still one of the best point guards here in the slate. Don't get me wrong, but in this particular game against Philadelphia, he is definitely the Boston Celtics definitely have the better point guard. Terry Rozier. Let's go over to the cruncher, and Terry has been phenomenal. 54 and 50 the last two games. Game 7 against Milwaukee, and 54, almost a 55 spot pretty much against Philly. 27, almost 27% usage rate, 35 fantastic minutes, 11 of 18 and 7 of 9. He shot the ball fantastic in game 1. 29 points. Now this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is how you accumulate fantasy points. Not only do you score, but you do other little things like 6 assists and 8 rebounds. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I discussed the other day. That you're looking for players like this because they give you that upside of fantasy points. You don't want somebody who's not going to do the dirty work, is only going to just be a scorer, shoot from 3-point range, or shoot from the key or from the perimeter, and hope his baskets go down and he scores 21 points, but he only got 29 fantasy points because he didn't do nothing else. He didn't do any steals. He didn't create any. He didn't do any blocks. You know, he didn't pass the ball. There weren't enough assists or enough rebounds. But this is what I'm talking about. This is more of a complete player. He came out and he was a complete player for Boston. He literally has taken Boston on his back, his players and the team, and say, hey, you guys ride me because I am young and I want to play and I want to freaking win games. And that's what he's showing here with game 7 against Milwaukee. 36 minutes, 10 of 16, 5 of 8. And then he comes back game 1, shoots 11 of 18 and 7 of 9 against Philly. Alright? Philly should not be able to handle this guy again today. Philly needs to neutralize the other guys. Neutralize Tatum. Neutralize Mr. Smart, who had a decent game, I believe, the other day, right? Neutralize Horford and Baines. Okay? And Tatum. But this guy's the guy who's going to bury you. Unless you want to neutralize him and then hope that Tatum, Horford, and all those guys beat you. Okay? But I would say, you know, this guy's going to take shots. You know, 8,400. Price range is a little steep. He was only 7,200 for game 1. They definitely jumped the price 1,200. So that means you got to get 41, about 42, 43 fantasy points from Terry today. He definitely shows that he can do it. He has the upside for it. He showed it here, 50 and 54 in the last 2 games. Let's see what he has been averaging throughout the playoffs. Terry Rozier, where's my stuff at? Okay, team, yep. Rozier is averaging 39. If you calculate all the games he's played, which is about 8 games, he's averaging 39 in the playoffs. All right. So at this price, he is averaging below the price for him today. But I like the fact that he's been balling the last 2 games. So I'm going to go by what he has done in the last 2 games, and I would say that he's in a good spot again today. As long as he gets shots, as long as he's on the floor, he doesn't get hurt. All right. And he continues to rebound and assist and do all the dirty stuff. Look, 1 block, 2 steals. As long as he continues to do that, go all out and play hard, he's going to be able to get 40 plus, and he'll be able to hit that value. So I really like Terry Rozier. I like him more than Kyle Lowry today. I think he has more upside than Kyle Lowry, simply because Lowry is not going to get a lot of steals and a lot of blocks, and this is something that Terry will do. And also Terry, is going to get a little bit more time, more shots, more opportunities, simply because Boston needs him to. Boston needs him to. He is a very much an integral part of their offense. He's actually probably the key player right now, other than Tatum and Horford, that are going to put up the massive amount of minutes and points that Boston needs to stay in this series. And it's going to be tough for Boston. You know, as we know, we have all those injuries. All right. So Terry Rozier definitely in play, guys, tonight in the Boston Philly game. I am not on anybody else on this list here. I mean, it's just no need for me to look anywhere else in that particular game. So we go over. Let me just get this out here. We go shooting guard. All right. We have Mr. J.J. Redick and Mr. Marcus Smart. Obviously, Smart will still be starting again today. As we know, Jaylen Brown is still, nursing that hamstring. As we all know, same thing's going on with Rubio. Those injuries are nothing to play around with hamstrings. I've had my issue being an athlete as well. When I was younger, you definitely don't want to mess around with hamstrings. You definitely want to give that enough time. So, going into this matchup today, and at the shooting guard, I obviously do like J.J. Redick and Bellinelli. Like I did say in Game 1, I really was favoring those guys. What Marcus Smart brings to Boston is his presence on the floor. It's like, Roberson for OKC. When they're on the floor, they make the defense that much more better for the team. And he is definitely, the catalyst there to get the Boston team going with defensively. That's the thing that he brings there. I still like the offensive firepower that Redick and Bellinelli could bring as a tandem. And if Redick doesn't get hot, Bellinelli will, or vice versa. So, it's definitely a tough matchup for Mr. Smart if he's going to try to defend any one of these guys. I think he's probably going to be more on Covington, but nonetheless, whoever he covers is going to be definitely a tough spot for them because Marcus is a good defender, but I think it's still a tough job for Marcus if he's going to have these guys rotate. One of these guys is going to go off at some point, and I definitely will take my chances more with Redick or Bellinelli. So Marcus Smart, let's take a quick look at him. Smart is averaging right now in the playoffs. I have him here. He actually missed 2 games here, but I have him overall with 24 fantasy points average, which is not too bad. They're asking 6,200 for him, so he needs to get 30, 31. And you need about 31 from him. He hasn't quite gotten there, so he can. He has potential to be able to get there, especially if he continues to defend, gets a couple steals, because that's what he is very good at. But I don't know if I'm on him at that price when I can actually go with Bellinelli or Redick. We'll go over here and look at Redick. Redick is at 27, 28, 37 over the last 3 games. He had these 2 duds here, but Redick, looking at Redick here, Redick has been averaging 27, so he's averaging 3 fantasy points more than Smart. And then Bellinelli, all right, has been averaging. Now let's finish here with Redick. Let me not get ahead of myself. He's at 54. He's actually $200 less. So I just look at those numbers. I look at 5,400, and then I look at 6,200, and they're pretty much projected at 27 and 25. Yeah, I'd rather take my chances with Redick. Redick has the upside to get 39, 40, and the beauty of that is he's going to get massive shots. You never know. He may go off for about 40, 45. There's 34, 32, 34. As you can see, massive minutes. He gets a good usage rate. He gets massive shots, 13, 13, 18. Look at the threes, 7, 10, 9. If he can just hit at a 45% clip or better, he's going to put up even more points. His fantasy point total is going to go up. Now, he doesn't do other things. He doesn't assist the ball well. He doesn't get a lot of rebounds. That is, he's a shooter. All right. They're counting on Covington and everybody else, which they have a nice front court, Philadelphia, to do all that rebounding. Actually, that's why Philadelphia is the top rebounding team in the playoffs. They have good rebounders in Simmons, Covington, Saric, Embiid. He just goes on and on. So I like Redick and Bellinelli. Either one of these guys, you cannot go wrong. Bellinelli, not looking good. A lot of reds, 13, 19, 18, but he's still getting good enough minutes, 27, 30, and 28. He just needs to bury a couple shots a little bit more. He's a streaky kind of shooter too. If he hits a couple of threes, hits a couple of shots from the floor, they will definitely feed him a little bit more. They definitely go with him when he is hot. And so that's something to look at. And again, for GPP play, he's excellent for it. All right, he's excellent. And during the course of the playoffs, Bellinelli, like I said before, is averaging 25. So go from here, the Miami series, all the way up, all through this here, he's averaging 25 when it's all said and done. So he's had a couple of decent games there, and he's capable of it. All right, but if I wanted to choose either one, my first thought would be definitely to go with J.J. Redick. So I would go with Redick over Smart, and I would go with Redick over Bellinelli if I'm going to play them tonight in that game. All right, small forward. Let's move on over here. We got Tatum and Covington. Nice little matchup there. Tatum and 6,800 for Tatum, 6,000 for Covington. We'll go over here to the cruncher. Tatum is projected to put up 37, Covington 29. And we're going to look here. Tatum is averaging 32 during the course of the playoffs, and in the last 3 games he's averaging 33 plus. So he's good there. He's at the price at 6,800. You need 30. You need 37, 38. No, you need 34. Sorry, you need about 34 points from him. And he's averaging 33, 36, and 33, and he's averaging overall, sorry about that, again, Tatum there, 32 during the course of all these games here in the playoffs. So he's priced fairly right. He's projected to be in that range. They're projecting to have 37, so that's even actually above value. If he's able to do that, that'll be great. 6,000. He's 40 minutes in the last game, 39 in Game 7 against Milwaukee. Look at the shots, 8 of 16, 7 of 17. Usage rate has been up. We all know that. It's going to be Rozier and Tatum. I did say this in Game 1 as well. They need these 2 guys to shoot and take over the games. There's no Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was actually struggling the last couple of games of that series against Milwaukee, and Tatum has been coming on his own. So Tatum and Rozier are going to be the lead guys other than Mr. Steady. Mr. Horford has been steady all throughout his whole season, you know, averaging about 30, 35 plus points per game. So, I mean, he's a steady, good cash play, not a big GPP play, Horford, but he is steady. But this kid here, as well as Rozier, definitely have upside. I like them both here. So Jason Tatum definitely is a good play for you guys tonight. If you want to pay for him, he should definitely make value, maybe even more than that. Mr. Covington is a nice play as well, simply because they struggled it. You know, I mean, this is one area where Boston has struggled during the course of the year. They've given up. Let me see here. Small forwards. They've given up 11 big games. I remember that. That's why I paused it for a minute. They have given up 11 big games this year to small forwards. One area that they've struggled the most, other than shooting guard, which I didn't mention when I was in the shooting guards. They have allowed 12 big games to shooting guards. So. Good position for Redick, and they're also in a good spot today is Mr. Covington. He didn't look good in the first game. Played 27 minutes. His usage rate was like probably pretty much nil because he didn't hit anything. He was 0 of 6 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3, you know. And they decided, hey, you know what, we're going to have you out there, just try to defend. And he was a decent defender. Unfortunately, you know, it's just not a good game for him. But he is very capable. Covington is averaging in the playoffs 24 fantasy points. So you calculate all this, even though he's all in the red, he has not hit value in any of them. I am not in favor of Covington. I love Tatum in this matchup over Covington. But Covington is in a position that if you wanted to pay $800 less, you can go with him. I don't think at 6,000 it's a good play to use Covington today. I think I'd rather pay 6,800, pay 800 more, and know that I can probably get 8-9 fantasy points more out of Tatum, and that I have the upside that he's playing so well right now that he could probably get 50 or better. Yeah, my play here in this particular matchup, definitely Tatum. All right, definitely Tatum. Let's move on. Power forward. Power forward, very nice here. Power forward, we have Simmons. As we know, he's playing a little bit of point as well. We have Saric, and we have Ilyasova. All 3 of those guys are better priced or higher priced and are better suited to be a better play today than Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris is at 4,500. That's a nice low price for Marcus, but Marcus hasn't been that consistent. I think he's averaging, we'll get to it right now. So let's start with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons obviously is a stud, you know, probably rookie of the year. Either him or Donovan Mitchell is going to be the rookie of the year. I really love what Donovan Mitchell has done, so I'm in favor of Donovan Mitchell, as you guys all well know. He's projected to put up almost 49 fantasy points today, and his price is at 99, so you need almost 50. You need about 40, let's say 49. You need about 49 fantasy points from Ben Simmons today to hit value, and he had 37 and 41 in the last 2 games, but he has 50-point upside. 52, 52 there, 50. He's averaging during these playoffs 48 fantasy points, so he's very close at that value point. If he got, and he's more than capable to have a great game. He only shot 11 shots the other day, and he got to the foul line, and he was actually pretty poor from the foul line, 6 of 11, but 7 rebounds, 6 assists. What killed him also, he has 7 turnovers. He does a little bit of everything. He got a little bit into foul trouble. He definitely turned over a whole lot, 7. That's a lot of turnovers. If he can neutralize those turnovers and minimize them, and just get a couple more shots, get 13 or 14 shots, he will crush that value. Ben Simmons is a great play here. I mean, Philadelphia. I feel Philadelphia is going to have a really big bounce back game today, and they know that they're going to have to, because they'd rather tie up this series and go home and have the upper hand going into game 3 and 4 at home, just like Utah did last night. Let's go Jazz, by the way. I mean, that was a heck of a game. But Ben Simmons, good spot here, very close to value. I think he'll get there. I think he can get you there. I think he's a fine play. He's in a good position here. Boston, defensively against power forwards, they are okay. They're not great. Overall, as a team, they are pretty good. Okay, that's the reason why. So it's still a little bit of a tough matchup. But Simmons, he's capable of it. Sarge 29 in game 1, which is not that bad. 33 minutes, 5 of 11. Didn't hit any threes. Didn't get into the free throw line often enough. Had 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Had 1 steal. He needs to do a little bit more because he's capable of it. He's averaging 31 in his playoffs over a course of 7-8 games. And just him and Simmons up there up front is really, really, really tough. He missed a lot of good shots the other day, and he did the same thing in that Miami series too. Late, he was just not hitting as well. But if this guy can get his rhythm going early and shoot the ball well and get really under the boards and battle a little bit more, he is definitely a fine player. 6,300, you need 32 or so from him, and he's averaging, like I said, 31. So that's pretty much value. He's pretty much averaging value in the playoffs. So they got him priced just right. We just need him to break out a little bit. I think tonight is one of those nights where Simmons himself and Embiid, even in Redick, I think they're going to have better games. They're going to put up more points. I like Philly. Period. I like Philly in the East, as everybody knows who's been following me, and I like Utah Jazz and the Pelicans in the West. Hopefully one of those 3 teams make it to the finals. It's going to be a tough road, but I hope so. But, good play. I think Sarge is in a good spot here. He's going to have to deal with Horford or Baines, and those guys, or Marcus Morris. But I think they're in a good spot. And the thing about that, when you have Simmons, Sarge, and you also have Ilyasova, who plays, the 3 or the 4, Ilyasova is a nice play, too, only 5,000. Ilyasova is averaging 25 during the course of these playoffs, and that's about what his value is, 5. But he has upside, man. This guy can put up 40, 45 any given day. As you can see here, 45, 42, 37. He hasn't exploded yet. He's near value here, but he's averaging, like I said, 25. That's not bad. Very much at value. You should be able to get 25 from him, and he has the definite upside. And if he's not the one who's on, then it's Sarge is on. And if it's not Sarge, then it's going to be Ilyasova. So one of these guys, you could take your pick. I would rather take a risk with Ilyasova, the longest he's getting the minutes. He got 21 minutes here in game 1, which is really low after he played 32 minutes in the Miami game. 23, 20, 27, a little up and down, a little choppy with the time. So maybe not so much so. Maybe Sarge is the better play here. But they have him projected with 22 fantasy points today, at least here on the Cruncher. And he's averaging 25, so he's actually below. They're projecting to have below value, whereas Sarge is near value. So if I'm going to choose anybody here, I'm going to definitely just pay up for Simmons and take my risk there. I'd rather just pay up and try to get 20 more fantasy points for about $3,000 more. Sometimes you got to pay to get to the next level here. So if you look at the matchups, definitely power forward. I favor Simmons for sure. Here on Fanduel, obviously on DraftKings, you can play him at point guard as well. But Sarge and Ilyasova, if you're going to have these two right now, I'll lean to Sarge simply because he's getting more floor time. He's usually the starter anyway. Ilyasova usually plays some relief to him, but he also plays the 3. Sometimes you'll have Sarge and Ilyasova on the floor at the same time. So it's just a preference. It's a choice there. I think the best play obviously is Simmons. He's more costly, but he has tremendous upside. He can definitely explode for 50 plus, and he'll cover that with no problem. So my vote here is for Simmons, but I also like Mr. Sarge. When you think of Boston in this matchup, I'm not too fond of Marcus Morris, but Marcus Morris is a battler. He's a little scrappy. 28, 24, 26 over the last 3 games. Definitely in the red here. Morris has been averaging 21 fantasy points, and you need about that for his value today. So it's not that bad. He's priced, pretty much right. I just don't know if that's someone that I want to play at 4,500. I think I can get better value in the other game, or for 45, or I would rather take Ilyasova as long as he's getting that 25 minutes plus. I would take Ilyasova, who has a lot more upside offensively than Morris. So that's at least my choice there. Let's move on here. Center, Philadelphia, Boston. Obviously, the best bet here is Mr. Joel Embiid. Boston 6th overall. Mr. Embiid is averaging here in the playoffs. He's averaging 45 fantasy points. They want 94 for him, so it's pretty much at value. You need about 45 for him to pay that price. And you know what? He put up a 54 spot in game 1. And this guy is hungry, man. Remember, he didn't play a whole lot. He only played 3 games against Miami, and he's averaging 45 in those 4 games. So I think he's going to hit value and then some. It's either himself and Simmons are both going to come off tonight, or he's going to have the big game and Simmons is going to have the game a little bit lower than him. But those are the 2 guys you got to definitely focus on here. If you're going to stack Philadelphia, definitely consider Embiid with Mr. Simmons. But 54 fantasy points, 33% usage rate in that game, 35 minutes, 12 of 21. He took massive shots, 2 of 5 from 3, got to the foul line a little bit, hit 5 of 6 there, had 13 rebounds, 12 of them defensively, had 5 assists. He definitely had a steal. Surprisingly, he didn't have no blocks. So imagine if he would have had a few blocks here as well, which he is capable of doing that. So it's something to be looking out for tonight. I like Embiid tonight. He'll definitely be on some of my lineups. So in this particular matchup, I think he is the best center. Then we go over to Boston. We got Mr. Horford. Horford has been steady. I call him steady Al. This guy's just steady. He's pretty consistent in his fantasy point totals. He's been averaging 38 fantasy points throughout the playoffs. He had 38 in game 1, and he had 42, 32, 43, 33. 34, 58, pretty much one big game against Milwaukee. That was an overtime game. He's averaging 33 minutes, pretty much the last few games. Took 12 shots in game 1, hit 10 of 12, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. I mean, fantastic. It's just he didn't get enough rebounds and he didn't get enough assists. But if he does that and he gets a 1 or 2 steals or a block, his fantasy points will be through the roof. This is exactly what I mean about not getting sufficient. He's more of a shooter. He doesn't really get under the boards as much as you want him to. He's not like a dirty, physical center. So this is the reason why he stays pretty much on the floor, around the paint area, gets a little putbacks, stays in the wing and try to hit those 3-pointers, which he's a very good shooter, and why not? But this is what you're going to get out of him. If he doesn't get sufficient shots, you're going to get 26 points. You got 26 points. That in any given day, as a game, that is an awesome game. But fantasy point-wise, when you only get 38, that means that he wasn't able to get other things going. He didn't get to the free throw enough. He didn't get enough rebounds. He didn't get enough assists, and he definitely didn't get any blocks and steals. And that's the reason why he had 38.40 fantasy points as compared to here. He had 58 fantasy points, and he only put up 24. Perfect example. But look what happened. 12 rebounds. Alright? So more rebounds. 6 more rebounds than the last time. Look at here. 2 steals, 3 blocks. That automatically puts your fantasy points sky high. So he needs to do a little bit more of that. If he can do a little bit more of that, he's a great play. But he is a good cash play, and I won't say he's a great GPP play. If he does these little things that you see here, what he did in game 1 against Milwaukee, in that overtime game, then you're going to see the results better. Look, he even got to the foul line more. 14 free throws, hit 13 of them. That's why he had 58, almost 60 fantasy points. So he has the potential to do it. That we know. But he's not consistent enough to do that. He is more steady, usually the 37, 38 fantasy points, and that's pretty much what you're going to get from him. Cash play, excellent. Al Horford. GPP, I'd rather go with MB and pay the almost 2,000 more for him. All right, guys? So that's the way I look at it. All right, Mr. Baines. Not bad. He's been playing well enough to get floor time. He's averaging 15 fantasy points. After I calculated all the playoff games, he's averaging about 15. Not taking a whole lot of shots. He does all the dirty work, gets the rebounds, gets the putbacks, gets the offensive rebounds. That's what he does. That's what this guy does. He's very rough. He's physical, and that's what you need a couple of these guys in your team, and that's the reason why he gets some floor time. So I'm not too much in favor of him, but 3,700, he's a fine play if you want to save some money and you want to go there dirt cheap and really pay up somewhere else and get a couple of studs in this lineup. Sure, Mr. Baines is not bad. He's actually a great play at 3,700 because he's averaging 15, and at 3,700 you need about 15 or 16. And he's been able to get that. So he's priced just about right. And he has the potential to give you 20, 24, 22. As you can see here, he did that in Milwaukee once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. 4 out of the 7 games against Milwaukee, he gave you 20 points or better fantasy points. So he has the potential to get you your money and smash value by a few fantasy points. So Baines is not a bad play. So that's pretty much where we at. And now when we think about Philadelphia and Boston as far as team stacking, like I mentioned before, you could stack up. You could do a team. You could do a game stacking here. Like I said before regarding Cleveland and Toronto, you could stack 6 or 7 players from this game and then get the other 2-3 players from the Cleveland-Toronto game. Or get 5 from here and 4 from there and be more balanced out. But it works perfectly well if you get 6 or 7 and then get 2 or 3 from somewhere else. And that's what you can do here. Team stacks here. Going with Philly first, Redick. Okay, you got Redick averaging 27, Bellinelli 25, Covington 24, Simmons 48, Sarge 31, Ilyasova 25, and Embiid 45. Those are all your offensive guys. And if you look at those guys and you look at Boston, Boston only has Rozier averaging 39, Smart 24, Tatum 32, Morris 21, Horford 38, and Baines 15. All right. There are more offensive weapons here, guys, on Philadelphia than there is in Boston. This is why I still believe Philadelphia, if they have 3 or 4 of these guys, meet their fantasy point average or better, and then all of them have upside. That's the beauty of it. They're all good GPP plays. Redick, Bellinelli, Simmons, Sarge, Ilyasova, Embiid. Your best core guys there will probably be Simmons and Embiid, who are pretty average, and they average more than 40 somewhat fantasy points per game, usually on the average during the course of the season. But as far as offensive weapons, man, they got plenty of guys that can shoot the ball and do well. They got plenty of shooters. If you can get 4 or 5 of these guys to perform at this level, they will win the game. So I am in favor of Philadelphia offensively out of this 2-game slate. So I definitely want to focus on at least 2 to 3 solid players from Philadelphia, maybe even possibly 4 if I can get them in a lineup, and then build that core around the remainder of the players in the Boston as well as what is left from Cleveland and Toronto. So it's entirely up to you. Best stacks here for Philadelphia: Embiid and Simmons, which I mentioned before. Embiid is averaging 45, Simmons 48 during the course of the playoffs. That's 93 fantasy points among the 2 guys. 93 fantasy points, and that is average, guys. Average. They have potential. They have upside to put up 50, 55, 60 massive fantasy points. So then you automatically go 60, 60, you got 120. So that's 93 average, with the potential of 100 plus. So definitely that's a nice stack. All right. If you want a triple stack and you want to do a triple play here with Philly, Embiid Simmons with Sarge or Embiid Simmons with Redick. Those are the ones I will be concentrating on. I think those are good plays right there. So if you want to triple stack it, you want to do a triple play there, Embiid Simmons and Redick or Embiid Simmons and Sarge. All right, guys. That's how I feel about Philadelphia. Boston, good double stack, Rozier and Tatum. They have been the best 2 studs. Rozier is averaging 39, Tatum 32. Over the course of the playoffs, that's 71 fantasy points, and they both have upside to, as you can see, Rozier put up 50 plus, and Tatum has done 40 plus. So they have upside to go up 20 to 25 more fantasy points or better between the 2 of them combined. So definitely a fine play there if you want to double stack those guys. A triple play with Philadelphia with Boston would only be Rozier to me, Tatum with Horford. I don't see anybody else because they don't have a whole lot of offensive weapons. So Rozier, Tatum, and Horford are going to have to be the bulk of the offense. Fantasy point wise, but for us, those are the best bets. But as a team, they need those guys, especially Rozier and especially Tatum. All right, with no Brown, you got to hold that Mr. Smart can hold that 24 fantasy point total, which he is up and down. He's a good defender, not so much a great offensive player. All right, but he has those moments that he can put 30 plus. So he has a little bit of upside if he can get it done today. And that's pretty much where I'm at, guys. I think those are the plays for the day. Those are the stacks that I recommend. Remember, make multiple lineups. Give yourself a shot. This is a GPP. I want you to have that GPP mindset. You're looking to win 50K. I'm going to be doing that. I'll probably be making about 5 lineups here. And then, of course, there's a couple lower value entries for a little less money. This is 50K. I think they have a 20K and a 5K or something like that as well. So I'm going to just, play a couple games here and give it a shot. And hopefully tomorrow one of us will get on here and comment and say, hey, I used some of the players you were thinking about, and man, when I hit that 50K, that'd be great. It'd be nice to know, and I would appreciate that if you guys comment down below. But real quickly, I'll go over them real quick. Rozier, Lowry, definitely in play, guys. You want value, definitely you can consider Fred VanVleet. Even George Hill, if he gets the time at point guard in this slate. My favorite play, Rozier. Okay? Shooting guard, you got DeRozan, Smart, Riddick, Smith, Korver, Bellinelli. I definitely like DeRozan here. And then other than him, I like Riddick. And then you always got to consider one of those Cleveland guys. You want a low value play here. You want somebody under 5. J.R. Smith had an excellent game, so did Carl Culver. Take one of those two. Either take KK or take J.R. Either one of those is fine. I think they'll get that. Bellinelli is a nice sneaky play. He hasn't played well, but again, he's a streaky guy. He gets hot. They start feeding him the ball. Next thing you know, he's got 30 plus. So Marco Bellinelli is definitely someone that not to say to yourself not to even look at. You could definitely consider him as well, but I would think Smith or Carver is probably a better play, and I definitely like Riddick. Small forward, James is definitely on the board. He's the top dog here. It should be on everybody's mind. I would think he's going to be more than 50% owned tonight because he's been playing awesome. And you know what? You don't lose out if you choose a chalk player. Obviously, if he busts, you all bust there, and maybe you'll get the upside with some of the other players you have in your line. So you got to look at it like that. And then if you do well, then it means you're up there with everybody else. So that's the way you got to look at it. So LeBron James is definitely in play. Jason Tatum is my favorite play after that. I'm not on Covington today. I think Tatum is a better play, and he's valued at better also with a better upside. So I definitely like Tatum here. And OG is definitely a nice sneaky play, or even CJ Miles at 3,500. That is fairly cheap. These guys should be able to get you more than 15. And OG, remember, like I said, Cleveland has had those issues with small forwards and power forwards, so you never know what you're going to get there. They may have a bad game, and this is where OG may do very well, which he didn't do in game 1. So something to think about there. But definitely the best plays is James and Tatum here in the power forward spot. Ben Simmons is definitely someone I love here, and I definitely like Saric and Ilyasova. I am not so much on Love. And I'm not in favor of Ibaka, but Ibaka is in a good spot. Like I said before, Cleveland has had their issues with power forwards, and if Ibaka can get himself going and get himself involved in his offense early, then he will have a shot to have a good game. So someone very sneakily here that you can actually get at 4,600. I think he is not a bad choice here for a GPP play. All right. So just simply because Cleveland has had those issues with power forwards. So we'll see what happened there. And that's why Jeff Green is definitely another nice little value play. He gets sufficient minutes. So 4,000 is not a bad play there. At center, I love Joel Embiid here. And other than him, I definitely love Jonas Valanciunas. So I love Valanciunas here as a lower value play. Only 7,000. If you want to pay all the way up, get Embiid. I think he's going to hit 50 or better today. Valanciunas is going to do 40 or better today. So pick your poison here. Which one you want. Which one you want to go with. I mean, he is 2,400 cheaper, so Valanciunas is not a bad play if you want to squeeze in a LeBron and get some other value somewhere else, like a DeRozan or a Kyle Lowry or even a Ben Simmons. Something to consider. A low value center, definitely Tristan Thompson is the best play. 4,500, his value has gone up, and understandably so, but I think he's definitely a good play here today as well. So Tristan Thompson should definitely hit value again today, especially if he plays sufficient minutes and he's effective, which he has shown that he can be, and he has been. All right, and that's basically it, guys. So again, good luck tonight. Great games. They're going to be great to watch. I look forward to them. I hope you guys have some success tonight. I'm going to try to make my lineups now real quickly. And that's basically it, man. God bless. Have a wonderful night. Good luck to everyone. You have any questions, comment down below. Don't worry about it. Comment down below. Again, like the video. I really appreciate it if you like the videos. And at the same time, please, if you have not subscribed, first time here, listening to me, I appreciate you subscribe as well. And if you did already, I thank you for that. I appreciate you guys. The channel is doing fairly well, and I'm looking forward to continued success with you guys. Let's make some money, man. Your boy Manny is out.